They asked a poor girl to sing as a joke, but the moment her voice filled the room, every doubt and whisper turned into awe. Alina was not the kind of girl anyone noticed at school. She wore old clothes that were always too big or too small. Her shoes had worn-out soles, and her hair was usually tied back in a messy braid. Most of the students in her school came from well-off families. They wore fancy clothes, carried the latest phones, and came to school in cars. But Alina always walked, no matter how hot or cold the weather was. Her house was far from the school, and sometimes she arrived late, which gave teachers one more reason to scold her. She never spoke unless someone asked her something directly. In class, she sat at the back, close to the window, and kept her eyes on her notebook. Her teachers knew she was quiet but smart. She always completed her work and never caused trouble. But her classmates didn't care about that. To them, Alina was invisible except when they wanted to laugh at someone. She was an easy target. They called her Rag Girl behind her back. They made fun of her lunch, her shoes, and even the way she sat. Alina heard it all, but she never reacted. She had learned to stay silent. No one knew much about her home life. But people had seen her mother at the market thin, sick-looking, and walking with a cane. Her father was rarely seen. Rumors said he was either jobless or worked long hours. At a factory, Alina helped her mother with chores, cooked dinner, washed clothes by hand, and even tutored her younger brother. There was no TV at home, no internet, and no luxury. But Alina found joy in something very simple: music. When everyone slept, she would sit near the window and sing quietly to herself. Her mother always said her voice was like warm honey in winter, but no one at school knew that. To them, she was just the poor, quiet girl who didn't belong. One day, a notice was posted on the school board. The annual talent show was coming up. It was a big event. Parents were invited. Teachers became judges, and students prepared dances, poems, and songs for weeks. For many students, it was their time to shine. The popular girls prepared a group dance. The boys brought guitars and planned to perform rock songs. Everyone was excited, except Alina. She knew this event had nothing to do with her. Then something unexpected happened. In one of the morning assemblies, the principal announced a surprise change. This year, he said, we will allow random nominations. You can suggest any student to perform in the talent show. Anonymous nominations will be placed in this box. At first, everyone was confused. But then the students saw it as a game. They started writing names on slips of paper, some serious, some as jokes. That's when a group of mean-spirited boys decided to have fun. They wrote Alina's name for the singing category. They laughed to themselves. One of them said, she probably doesn't even know what a mic is. Another added, it'll be hilarious. She'll stand there like a statue, imagined. The scene giggled. The next morning, the principal stood on stage again. After going through the nominations, he said, we have a surprising entry. Alina Yusuf has been nominated to sing. The auditorium fell into shocked silence, followed by soft giggles. The students turned to look at Alina, who stood frozen among them. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. She hadn't signed up. She didn't even attend music class. How could this happen? The principal continued. Since our rule says all nominations must be honored unless the student refuses, Alina, would you like to participate? Every eye turned to her. The boys who nominated her watched eagerly, waiting for her to say no. They wanted her to cry, to run away, to embarrass herself. Alina looked down. Her heart was beating fast. Her ears burned. She didn't want to sing in front of everyone. But then a small voice inside her, maybe, the one that sang softly at night, said, why not? She looked up and whispered, yes, I'll do it. The room went quiet again, this time not from laughter but confusion. Even the teachers were surprised. No one had expected her to agree. As the students walked back to class, whispers followed her. She's going to be humiliated. She doesn't even talk. How will she sing? This is going to be the best joke ever. But Alina walked slowly to her seat, deep in thought. That night she told her mother what had happened. Her mother listened carefully, her tired eyes full of concern. You don't have to do it if you're scared, her mother said softly. Alina shook her head. I want to. I don't know why, but I feel like I should. Her mother nodded. Then sing like you do here at home, like no one's watching. For the next few days, Alina practiced quietly in her room. She chose a song her mother used to. When cooking. It wasn't popular, but it was beautiful. She sang it over and over, making sure every note felt true. She didn't have a music coach, a speaker, or a backing track. All she had was her voice on, something to prove. At school, students continued to mock her. "Better bring earplugs," one said. "It's going to be painful," another laughed. But Alina said nothing. She just kept her focus. The day of the talent show arrived. The stage was decorated with colorful lights. The audience included teachers, parents, and the school management. One by one, the students performed. The audience clapped politely for each act. Energy was high until the host announced, "Next up, we have Alina Yusuf, singing solo." There was a pause. A few kids snickered. Some leaned forward, curious to see the disaster unfold. Alina walked on stage slowly, holding the mic with both hands. Her heart thumped in her chest. Her palms were sweating. She could see her classmates whispering and smirking. But then she remembered her mother's words, "Sing like no one's watching." She closed her eyes and opened her mouth. The first note was soft, almost like a whisper, but it floated through the hall like a breeze. Then came the second, fuller, warmer. Her voice, clear and rich, filled the auditorium. Slowly, the room fell silent. The teacher sat up straighter. The giggles stopped. The students stopped chewing. Gum stopped moving, stopped breathing. The joke had vanished. Alina sang with her eyes closed, not because she was afraid, but because the song carried her somewhere else. She didn't see the stage. She didn't hear the crowd. All she could feel was the melody, the words, and the years of silence breaking free. She wasn't the girl they mocked anymore. She was something more. When the final note faded into silence, there was a long pause, an entire room, too stunned to react. Then suddenly, a teacher stood up and clapped. Then another. Then the whole room followed. The applause was thunderous. Alina opened her eyes and saw a sea of people standing, clapping, some with tears in their eyes. Even the boys who had set her up stared at her, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. She stepped back from the mic and took a small bow. Her hands were still shaking, but her heart felt light. For the first time in her life, people weren't laughing at her. They were looking at her with something she had never received at school: respect. That night, when she walked home, the streets felt different. The air felt warmer. She wasn't just Alina, the quiet girl, anymore. She was Alina, the girl with the voice. And even though many things in her life hadn't changed, her old shoes, her small home, her mother's illness, something deep inside her had. She had taken a chance. She had shown them who she really was, and that had changed everything. The day of the talent show had finally arrived. Entire school was buzzing with excitement. Students were dressed in their finest clothes. Girls had added glitter to their hair, and the boys wore clean shirts for once. The stage in the auditorium was decorated with balloons, paper stars, and a colorful backdrop that said, "Let your talent shine." Teachers moved around checking sound systems, microphones, and stage lights. While students were either nervously rehearsing or chatting loudly in groups, everyone had one name on there: Alina. She wasn't on the official performance list when the show was first announced, but after the student nomination surprise, her name had been added. At first it was a joke. Most of the students expected her to back out. Some even bet chocolates that she would start crying or run off the stage. After all, she was the quietest girl in school, wore the same old faded clothes every week, and never talked to anyone unless she had to. She didn't dance in front of mirrors or sing along to trendy songs in the cafeteria. No one had ever seen her speak in public, let alone sing. But when she said yes to performing, the joke started to feel different. As the auditorium filled up with parents, teachers, and guests, the students lined up backstage. Preparing for their turns, there were dancers practicing their steps, boys with guitars, tuning their strings, and a girl nervously fixing her makeup for a poem performance. Alina stood at the far end, away from the crowd, holding a piece of paper with her song lyrics, though. She didn't really need it. She had sung this song 1,000 times at home, mostly in the dark. Everyone else was asleep. Her dress was simpler, sky blue frock that her mother had stitched from leftover fabric. Her shoes were polished but old. She had tied her hair back neatly, and for the first time, she wore a tiny silver clip her mother had given her years ago, even though her hands were shaking and her heart was beating loudly in her chest. She kept repeating to herself, "Sing like no one's watching." From backstage, she could hear the loud applause as one student finished his magic tricks. Then came the dancers, followed by a boy band from Class 9. They were loud, confident, and full of energy. The crowd cheered wildly. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The host, a cheerful boy from Class 10, stepped onto the stage. "And now," he said with a smile, "we have a very special performance. Singing for the first time at any school event. Please welcome ... Alina Yusuf." There was a strange silence in the hall. A few giggles escaped from the audience. Whispered, "This is it. She's going to mess up." Others leaned forward in curiosity. The teachers looked surprised. Even the principal turned his head, clearly unsure about what to expect. Behind the stage curtain, Lena took a deep breath and stepped forward. As she walked onto the stage, the bright lights hit her eyes. She blinked. She couldn't see the crowd. Clearly, just a blur of faces. Her legs felt weak, her hands cold. She walked slowly to the microphone, every step echoing through the quiet auditorium. There she was, alone on the stage. A small, nervous girl in a simple dress, standing in front of a sea of eyes. It felt like the whole world had paused, watching and waiting. She reached the microphone and adjusted it carefully. Her fingers were trembling. She looked down at her feet, then at the audience. She saw some kids smirking, others recording her. On their phones, ready to capture what they thought would be a funny fail, a drop of sweat rolled down her temple. In that moment, something powerful stirred inside her. She remembered her mother sitting on the edge of the bed, holding her hand the night before and saying, "Don't be afraid, just sing from your heart." She closed her eyes. Silence then. She began to sing. The first note was quiet. It's not many. Expected it, but it was clear. Pure. A soft sound that floated gently into the air. Then came the next note, a little stronger, fuller. The sound wrapped around the room like warm sunlight coming through a window. The giggles stopped. The whispers faded. Even the students who were ready to laugh stopped smiling. Her voice rose, smooth and powerful, carrying emotion with every word. She sang about pain and hope, about dreams that hide in silence. It wasn't a loud pop song or a trendy number. It was an old folk song, soulful and deep. Alina didn't open her eyes. She was no longer on a stage in a school. She was in her world. A world where she sang to the stars from her window, where her little brother fell asleep to her lullabies, where her sick mother smiled whenever she heard her voice. The audience was silent, not bored, not confused, but stunned. Even the teachers, who had seen dozens of performances over the years, sat with wide eyes and open mouths. One of them slowly reached for her phone, not to record a joke, but to save this moment. A tear slid down the cheek of an old teacher sitting in the front row. She whispered to the person next to her, "Where has this girl been hiding this voice?" Lena sang the chorus with strength and passion. It filled the room. Some students who had once laughed at her were now sitting straight, their faces serious. The boy who had first written her name as a joke was frozen in his seat. His smile gone. As the song reached its final lines, Alina's voice softened. She sang the last few words gently, like a mother singing her child to sleep, and then dashed silence. No one moved. No one clapped at first. Didn't know what to do. Then slowly, someone in the back started clapping. A second later, someone else joined, then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium exploded with applause. People stood up from their seats. Teachers, parents, students all clapping, some even cheering. It was loud, long, and powerful, Alina opened her eyes. She looked out at the audience and saw something she had never seen before. Admiration. Amazement. Her lips curved into a small, shy smile. She stepped back from the microphone, bowed slightly, and walked off the stage slowly. Behind the curtain, the host looked at her stunned. That was... Wow, he whispered. Alina nodded quietly and walked past him. Backstage, some students clapped. For her, others just stared. No one had anything mean to say. The silence was different now. It wasn't mocking, it was full of awe. As she stood near the wall, catching her breath, she heard someone say, "That was the best performance of the night." Another voice added, "I had no idea she could sing like that." The boys who had made fun of her earlier sat quietly in the audience. Their plan to embarrass her had failed. In fact, it had done the opposite. They had given her a chance to shenanigan. She had turned it into gold. Alina waited quietly until the end of the show. The other performers finished, but no one got the same reaction. No other act felt as real, as moving, or as powerful. At the end of the event, the principal came on stage to thank everyone. Then he paused. "I would like to specially mention one student today," he said. "A girl who reminded us all that real talent has nothing to do with popularity, clothes, or noise. Real talent speaks for itself." He turned and looked at Alina. "Thank you for your performance. It was unforgettable." Everyone clapped again. Alina didn't know how to react. She had never been praised like this. But deep inside, something had changed. For the first time, she believed in herself. The school bell rang later that day, and the students rushed out as usual. But the conversations were different. She should join a music academy. "I want to hear her sing again." Why? Didn't we notice her before? Alina walked home with a soft smile. The wind felt different, lighter. She had walked this path hundreds of times. But today, she felt taller, stronger, like her steps had music in them. She reached home, opened the door, and her mother stood up from the chair, asking nervously, "How did it go?" Alina said nothing. She just stepped forward, hugged her mother tightly, and whispered, "I sang." Her mother smiled, eyes filling with tears. "I knew you would." And in that quiet, humble home, the girl who once felt invisible had finally found her voice, and the world had heard it. The Monday after the talent show felt like a different world for Alina. Usually, she would walk through the school gates unnoticed. She'd head to class with her eyes low, avoiding attention. But this time, everything had changed. She entered the school grounds. Students started whispering. Some stared. Others smiled at her. Some even waved. "Hey, that's the girl who sang at the show," someone said. "She was amazing," another added. Alina felt awkward. She wasn't used to this. A part of her still expected someone to laugh or say something mean, but they didn't. Not anymore. The jokes had stopped. The whispers had changed from teasing to admiration. When she reached her classroom, something happened that had never happened before. Her class stood up and clapped. The teacher smiled as well. "Everyone, let's welcome our school's new star," the teacher said. Alina didn't know what to do. She looked around, stunned. Her face turned red with surprise. She quietly walked to her seat, heart pounding. The seat next to her, which was always empty because no one wanted to sit near her, was suddenly filled. A girl named Sarah, one of the most talkative and well-liked girls in class, came over and sat beside her. "I had no idea you could sing like that," Sarah whispered. "You were incredible," Alina gave a shy smile. "Thanks," she replied softly. From that day on, everything started shifting. Teachers who had never spoken more than a few words to her now smiled and nodded in the hallways. Students she didn't know greeted her. Her classmates invited her to eat lunch with them. Some girls even asked her what songs she liked and begged her to sing again. It was all new, strange, wonderful but confusing too. Alina wasn't used to attention. Her whole life she had lived quietly in the background. She had trained herself to stay invisible. But now, the spotlight was following her everywhere. It wasn't just in school. The next day, school posted pictures and video clips from the talent show on its official social media pages. Alina's video was the most viewed one. Within hours, hundreds of people had watched it.
Oh.
Teachers from other schools commented things like, beautiful voice, or such talent from a young student. Parents of other children shared the video, saying they had goosebumps listening to her sing, and then a miracle happened. A music teacher from a local academy saw the video. His name was Mr. Haroon. He was a respected vocal coach and had trained many singers who had later become well-known artists. He called the school and asked to speak with Alina. The next day, the principal called her to the office. Alina walked nervously through the hallway, unsure why she was being called. When she entered the office, she saw the principal smiling. Sitting beside a tall man with kind eyes and a calm voice, Alina, the principal said, "This is Mr. Haroon. He saw your performance online and has something important to say." Alina sat down, her hands folded in her lap. Mr. Haroon leaned forward and said, "I've listened to hundreds of young singers, but your voice, it's special. It's raw, emotional, and real. I believe you have the potential to become something truly great. Would you like to come to our music academy for free training?" Alina's eyes widened. "Me?" She whispered. "Yes, you," he replied with a smile. Spoken to the principal. "If your parents allow it, we'd like to offer you a scholarship. You won't have to pay anything. Just come and learn." Alina nodded slowly. Her throat felt tight. "Thank you. I'd love to." When she returned home that evening, she told her mother everything. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what we did to deserve this blessing," she whispered, holding her daughter's hands. "But I always knew your voice was a gift." A few days later, Alina started going to the music academy twice a week after school. It wasn't easy. The academy was far, and she had to take 2 buses to get there. Sometimes it rained. Sometimes her shoes got soaked. Sometimes she didn't even have money for snacks. But she never missed a class, not once. She sat in the front row, listened carefully, and practiced every note again and again until it was perfect. Mr. Haroon was amazed by her dedication. He started giving her extra lessons. "You'll learn faster than anyone I've met," he said one day. "It's not just talent. It's your heart. You feel the music." Within weeks, Alina's voice became more polished. She learned how to control her breathing, how to hold notes longer, how to express emotions with each word. She learned songs in different languages, practiced singing scales, and even began composing her own small melodies. Back at school, she continued to surprise everyone. During morning assemblies, the school now asked her to sing regularly. Students listened in silence, teachers closed their eyes, and even the principal stood proudly. Some students who once teased her now looked up to her. They asked her for advice, wanted to take selfies with her, and invited her to their group projects. Still, Alina remained humble. She helped others with homework, shared her lunch when someone forgot theirs, and always said, "Thank you," even for the smallest compliments. She didn't forget where she came from, but not everyone was happy about her rise. A few students, especially the ones who once mocked her, began feeling jealous. They couldn't believe that the girl they once laughed at had become the most admired student in school. Some of them started spreading whispers again, not about her clothes or silence, but things like, "She's acting like she's a celebrity now," or "She just got lucky." One girl even told Sarah, "She's not that great. People are just overreacting." But Sarah, who had become Alina's close friend, stood up for her. "No," she said firmly. "She earned everything. We just didn't see her before." Alina heard some of the comments, but she didn't let them hurt her. She had bigger dreams now. One evening during music class at the academy, Mr. Haroon sat her down and said, "There's an inter-school music competition happening next month. It's one of the biggest in the city. Hundreds of students from top schools will be there. I think you should participate." Alina's heart skipped a beat. "Me?" "Yes," he said. "It's time to show the world your voice." Alina was nervous, but she agreed. Over the next few weeks, she worked harder than ever before. She stayed up late practicing, woke up early to revise songs, and balanced her studies with music. Her mother supported her every step of the way. Even though she sometimes worried about Alina pushing herself too hard, when the day of the competition came, Alina walked into the huge auditorium, her name written on the performance list beside students from rich schools with fancy uniforms and expensive instruments. She had none of that, just her voice and her courage. She walked onto the stage, just like she did in her school, closed her eyes, and sang from her heart. When she finished, the judges stood up. The audience clapped louder than they had for anyone else. She had sung a song she had written herself, song about being unheard, about finding strength in silence, about rising above mockery. Alina won first prize. She held the trophy in her hands, tears in her eyes, and thought about the girl she used to be, the one who was nominated for a joke. Now, that joke had turned into the voice that people stood up for. As she walked home that night, her heart was full. She knew this was just the beginning. There were still challenges ahead: money, responsibilities, critics, but she had found her voice. And that voice could open doors she had never dared to knock on before. And she promised herself, no matter how high she went, she'd never forget the silence she came from, nor the courage it took to break it. Alina's life was changing faster than she could believe. After winning the citywide singing competition, everything felt like a dream. Her name started appearing in local newspapers. Her photo holding the trophy and smiling shyly was shared on social media by the school and the music academy. For a girl who once walked the school halls quietly and kept her head low, Alina was now being talked about in every corner. But fame, even the smallest kind, comes with new problems. At school, most students admired her. Many respected her even more than before. Some younger girls now called her their idol and would rush to her after assemblies just to hear her talk. Teachers praised her hard work and started giving her special roles in school functions. However, jealousy also grew stronger. The same students who had made fun of her in the beginning were now clearly uncomfortable with her success. They didn't say anything openly, but their cold stares and whispers spoke loudly. One of them, Rita, who had always tried to be the center of attention in class events, couldn't accept that Alina had become the school's star. Rita started spreading small lies. Alina's getting special treatment just because she's poor, she whispered to others. She didn't even win fairly. The judges just felt sorry for her. Her friends laughed and agreed, even though deep down, they knew the truth: Alina had earned every bit of her success. Alina heard some of these things, but she kept her focus. She remembered what her music teacher had told her. When your voice becomes powerful, your silence must become stronger. So she didn't fight back. She didn't argue. She sang. And soon, another opportunity knocked on her door. One day after class, her principal called her into the office. Sitting with him was a woman in a neat suit, Miss Nadia, the organizer of a national youth music program. She had seen Alina's video from the inter-school competition and was amazed. "We're selecting a small group of students from across the country for a special music camp," she said. "It's fully funded travel, stay, meals, everything covered. Only 10 students will be selected. We want Alina to join." Alina's hands shook. Her heart raced. A national program? She'd never even been outside her city. The principal nodded proudly. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." That night at home, Alina shared the news with her mother. Her mother held her tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "This is your path, my daughter. I'm so proud of you," she whispered, but the excitement came with fear. The music camp would last 2 weeks and was in another province. It meant traveling alone, staying with strangers, and performing on bigger stages. Alina had never stayed away from her family, even for one night. What if she failed? What if she didn't fit in? Her mother noticed the worry in her eyes and said softly, "You were brave enough to sing when others laughed. You can do anything now." With those words in her heart, Alina packed her small bag and left for the camp. The music camp was like entering another world. There were students from big cities, wearing stylish clothes, carrying expensive instruments. Some had been learning music since they were 5. They spoke confidently, shared stories of stage performances, and practiced together with ease. Alina felt like a stranger at first. She wore her simple clothes, carried her old notebook with lyrics, and sat quietly in the corner. But then came the first vocal training session. Each student had to sing something short. Some performed well, some were nervous. When Alina's turn came, she stood up with shaking hands but a calm heart. She closed her eyes and sang a short piece on an old lullaby her mother used to hum. The room went quiet. Even the trainers looked at each other with surprise. One of them whispered, "Where did this voice come from?" After that, everything changed. She was no longer the shy, poor girl from a small school. She was the girl with the voice that made people stop and listen. During the next days, she made new friend students who appreciated her talent without judging her background. One boy from Lahore even said, "Your voice has the kind of magic that tells a story without words." Sang in groups, shared their cultures, and even wrote new songs together. Alina started gaining confidence, not just in her singing but in herself. She spoke up during workshops, offered suggestions, and even taught a few traditional melodies to others. In the evenings, when they sat around the bonfire, students would ask her to sing. She would sing softly at first, but soon her voice would rise into the night sky, touching hearts. The trainers at the camp began preparing for the final event, a grand concert, where all the participants would perform in front of an audience, including musicians, producers, and media people. It was the biggest stage Alina had ever dreamed of. Each participant was given a solo performance slot. Alina chose to sing a song she had written herself. It was called "Unheard Girl," and it told her story, the silence, the mockery, the small stage at school, and the rise that followed. She practiced day and night. The trainers helped her shape the song, the music team added instruments, and a mentor taught her how to control emotions on stage. When the night of the concert arrived, Alina was nervous again, but not afraid. She stood behind the curtain and listened to the crowd. The hall was packed with people, music critics, reporters, teachers, and even some celebrities. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. Then the host called her name, Alina, stepped onto the stage under a single spotlight. She couldn't see the faces in the crowd, just darkness and camera flashes. Took a deep breath and remembered her mother's words. "Sing from your heart." And she did. Her voice rose and fell like a gentle wave, full of truth and emotion. The song told of a girl who had no voice until she found the courage to be heard. Every word echoed through the hall. The instruments behind her played softly, letting her voice carry the story. The audience was silent, not because they were bored, but because they were moved. When she finished, for a moment, there was complete stillness. Then, the entire hall stood up. The applause was thunderous. Some people clapped with their hands high. Some wiped tears from their eyes. One music producer whispered to his assistant, "She's not just talented, she's real." Backstage, other participants hugged her, praising her performance. Organizers thanked her for sharing such a powerful story. Reporters asked for interviews. Photos were taken. She had never smiled so much in one evening. One of the judges came to her and said, "You remind me why music matters." That night, Alina sat in her room at the camp, holding a small flower someone had handed her after the performance. She thought about how far she had come from the dusty classroom corners to this stage. When she returned home, her mother was waiting at the gate. Alina ran into her arms, laughing and crying at the same time. "You did it," her mother said. It showed them all she had. Back at school, her story was everywhere. Students treated her with even more respect. Some teachers shared her song in class as an example of determination. Even those who were once jealous couldn't deny her talent anymore. Rita, the girl who had spread lies, approached her one day. "In the corridor, I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I was wrong about you." Lena looked at her, smiled gently, and replied, "It's okay. Sometimes people don't see what they're not looking for." She didn't carry hate in her heart. She carried songs. She returned to her music academy, where Mr. Haroon proudly placed her concert video on the wall, told other students, "This is what happens when courage meets talent." Alina's life was still simple, her clothes still old, her house still small, but her dreams were larger than ever. She started recording demo songs, attending small gigs, and teaching music to neighborhood kids for free. She wanted to give others what she had been given a chance, and in every song she sang, there was a piece of her journey, a whisper of that first school performance, a memory of standing alone under bright lights, soft echo of her mother's voice saying, "Sing from your heart." She always did. Alina's journey was now becoming something bigger than she had ever imagined. She was no longer just a schoolgirl with a hidden voice. She had become a symbol of hope, not only in her own school, but across the city. The video of her performance at the National Youth Concert had gone viral online. People who had never met her felt touched by her story. Some said her voice gave them courage. Some called her the girl who sings from the soul. But for Alina, life remained simple. She still woke up early, helped her mother with chores, and walked to school through the same dusty streets. Her home was still the same small house, with cracked walls and an old roof. They didn't have more money, and her mother still worked hard sewing clothes. But something had changed the way people looked at them. Neighbors greeted them with warmth and respect. Shopkeepers smiled at her mother and sometimes offered small discounts, saying, "Your daughter has made our whole area proud." Teachers in school now gave Alina more responsibility. She was asked to lead the school choir and was invited to speak at morning assemblies. One day during a community event, she was invited to perform in front of the mayor and other city officials. She sang a song about hope, about growing up in silence and finding a voice. The mayor stood up after her performance and said, "This young girl reminds us that talent lives in every corner of our society. It only needs a chance." After that, Alina was invited to sing at multiple charity events and cultural festivals. She didn't charge money. Instead, she always asked, "Will this help someone else like me?" She wanted her voice to lift others the way it had lifted her. One evening, she was sitting on the rooftop of her house with her mother looking at the stars. Her mother gently said, "You're becoming something beautiful, Alina. But don't forget stars only shine in the dark sky. Never be afraid of your past. It gave you your light." Alina smiled. "Never forget. Every song I sing comes." From that place, soon after, a music academy from a foreign country reached out. They had seen her videos and offered her a scholarship to study music abroad. It was a huge opportunity, one that could open even more doors for her future. It also meant leaving her home, her mother, and everything familiar. Alina was excited and scared at the same time. She sat alone that night thinking. She remembered her first day at school after the talent show, the claps, the smiles, the sudden respect. She remembered the pain of being laughed at, the loneliness, and how it had shaped her. Could she really leave it all behind? The next morning, she told her mother about the offer. Her mother listened quietly, then said, "I didn't raise you to stay small. I raised you to fly. Go, learn, grow. And when you miss home, just close your eyes and sing. I'll be listening." Alina cried, but deep inside she felt ready. Before she left for her studies abroad, her school organized a farewell event. Students, teachers, and even students from other schools came to see her off. Her principal gave a small speech. When Alina was first asked to sing, it was meant as a joke. But her voice turned that joke into something unforgettable. She taught us that real talent doesn't need wealth or looks, it just needs courage and one small chance. As a final gift, the school presented her with a handmade scrapbook filled with letters from students. One letter from a girl in class 6 read, "I was always too shy to speak in class. But after hearing you, I sang at my cousin's wedding. Everyone cried, 'Thank you for giving me bravery.'" Alina kept the scrapbook with her as she boarded the flight. It was her most precious possession. In the new country, everything was different. The weather was cold, the streets were cleaner. The buildings were tall and shining. People spoke differently, dressed differently, and lived faster lives. But inside the music academy, one thing felt the same: music. Her classes were intense. She trained with professional vocal coaches, learned about music theory, performed with orchestras, and sang in languages she had never even heard before. At first, she felt out of place. She didn't wear designer clothes, didn't have rich parents, and didn't know much about Western music styles. But the moment she sang, everything changed. Her classmates stopped and listened. Her teachers praised her raw emotion. Her voice didn't need translation, it carried feeling, and everyone could feel it. Slowly, she made friends from all over the world. They asked her about her story, about growing up in Pakistan, about her first performance. When she told them how it all began as a joke, they were shocked. One friend from Spain said, "That's how all great stories begin, with someone trying to stop you, and you proving them wrong." Months passed. Alina grew stronger, not just as a singer, but as a person. She started writing more original songs. Some of them were in Urdu, others in English. She blended styles from her culture with the music she learned abroad. Her voice became her bridge between two worlds. She started sharing her songs online. One video, a song about missing her mother, touched hearts globally. It was shared by famous singers and even got played on a popular radio station. Suddenly, she had fans from different countries messaging her, "Your voice healed me. Song made me cry. I played this for my mother." And then came another moment that changed her life. A well-known music label reached out to her and offered a contract to record her first album. They wanted to help her share her story with the world. The title of the album would be "The Girl Who Wasn't Supposed to Sing." Alina agreed, but with one condition: "I want my first concert to be in my old school." The label was surprised. "Are you sure? You could perform in a big stadium?" She smiled. "I know. But the biggest moment of my life started in a small room with broken lights and a laughing crowd. That's where my heart is." Months later, she returned home, not as a shy girl, but as an artist whose voice had traveled across oceans. The school prepared for her concert like it was a festival. Decorations, lights, media, and banners filled the halls. Her mother sat in the front row, dressed in the same simple clothes, but her smile shone like gold.
Out.
Rita and the other students who once laughed at her now stood at the back, clapping and waiting. When Alina walked onto that same stage, the same one where the joke had once begun, her eyes filled with tears. The crowd grew silent. She looked at the students and said, "Once, I was asked to sing here as a joke. That moment changed my life. Sometimes life gives you pain so you can create music.
Oh.
Don't be afraid of being different.
How?
Don't be afraid of your voice." Then she sang, not a new song, but the same one she had sung that very first time, the one that had left everyone speechless. And once again, silence filled the room, followed by applause that echoed louder than ever. From a poor girl mocked for her silence, Alina had become a voice that inspired the world, and her story reminded everyone of a powerful truth. Sometimes, the joke that others make becomes the moment that changes everything.